Hey everyone, we're at the first $1 million MLG Major. I'm here with Spencer Hiko Martin. This is our second interview together. He's actually the first man to ever give me an interview in my life. So I owe him maybe a coffee after. Drink coffee?
No, I don't.
Beer?
Not before a match. Give me some water and I'll be happy.
Water, okay. I'll get some really nice Aquafina?
Yeah, some spring water.
Dasani?
No, not Dasani.
Okay.
Voss water.
All right. Yeah, so Hiko's gotten really Hollywood over the course of the year. And again, this event is huge. So I guess we could start off there. Since the event is so big, what's like different for you having gone to events since the beginning of Go, and obviously way before, with how production is and how you're treated as a player? What are like the biggest changes that you've noticed, the things you don't like or like?
As events have gotten bigger, the players have been treated better and better. We're in better hotels. You know, we have somewhat of privacy, away from the crowd, so we don't have to always get mobbed by the crowd when we walk through it. Because the crowd is so big. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things of what I like about an American event and something that's this big is that the crowd actually is just, phenomenal. You can't even walk through the entire venue without getting mobbed.
Yeah.
So, I think tournament organizers are starting to realize that, and we're starting to get our own privacy. Something I definitely like. I mean, we're in America.
Yeah.
We don't have to travel. It's not a 10-hour flight to get to Europe and then have to wait, the jet lag, all the excuses that Americans like to make. And, comparing an event in 2013 compared to an event in 2016, it's just absolutely amazing how much growth we've had and how much tournaments actually have improved.
Now, if you want to go outside for a break, I think someone made a post today that like you and s1mple got mobbed and like weren't even able to get in the venue without having to deal with fans. And you can't tell them, fuck off because they're your fans. You obviously love them, but you have to get to places. Do you think like the next step is like have someone get you outside, get you back inside, or like give you extra exits or something like that at events, or does it matter that much?
Well, yesterday actually, we didn't bring our badges, so they didn't know who we were. Obviously, the people who worked the venue.
Yeah.
So we were just stuck outside and we couldn't actually do anything. We had to just wait there. So then we got mobbed, and then, as you said, you can't really. It feels bad to sign some autograph saying, "Oh, sorry, I got to go." So you have to sit there. You have to keep doing it. I don't have a problem doing it. It's just. It's rough sometimes if it starts cutting into our practice time, or we actually can't get through the crowd because of that. And I think definitely some kind of like security guard or something to kind of usher us through the crowd to make sure that we don't get stopped, that we can just get to where we need to go, so we can practice, so we can get to our match, so we can just take just a couple minutes outside just to kind of take in some fresh air.
So as per MLG compared to like ESL or other events, is there anything that you like more for like the practice area that you get or the time that you have between matches and scheduling? Has that all been really good?
I think the scheduling's been great. A lot of events are plagued with delays, computer problems, internet problems. I haven't really had any computer problems, haven't had any internet problems. This might be the first event in a long time where no computers actually even crashed, I don't think. So, props to MLG. I've been to, a bunch of cevo-ms at their studio, and I've been to, most of the MLG events, and I'm very happy with how they've been running stuff.
Nice. So coming into the event, as Liquid, you've been playing with Kusta, and to my knowledge, haven't been practicing with adreN, right? Because you got to play with Kusta for all these online matches, and for the future of the event after. How has that been? Has it been like a work in progress playing with Kusta, learning to play with him, or balancing, worrying about the major, playing with him? Has that affected it?
So we actually played with adreN for the 1 week before the major. So we went over everything. s1mple wasn't even opping for our team when we have Kusta. So he's just said, I want to op, let adreN op CT sides, and he'll op T sides. And he'll op whenever he wants to on T sides, obviously. But I think it's been working as good, if not better, than when we were playing with Kusta. s1mple is very aggressive with his op. He makes plays by himself, and I think that's the difference between oppers. And Kusta is like the exact opposite, where he is passive. He won't really make the plays. He'll hold an angle. He won't really take the risk to try to get that aggressive pick on another opper. I think that's one of the reasons why we're doing so well here is because s1mple is like the X factor. If he's going off and he's getting all those picks, it's pretty easy for us to win the round. And our T sides have been phenomenal. We've been winning. I think even against Fnatic, we took 10 rounds in our T sides. Yeah. So our T sides are good. We just need to work on our CT sides, and maybe that means s1mple opping more, opping less. We talked about it back last night, preparing for today. So we'll see what happens.
Cool. So that's like a takeaway for you for the major, since you just started to realize like, wow, this is something that maybe was missing from the team, like in terms of roles. That s1mple should be opping more, or.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I think again for T sides he helps a lot. Yeah. For T sides, being able to have that aggressive over that gets the picks, the early entries. Like if you don't have that, you have to kind of rely on your strats. Having an early picker, having somebody that can actually get those kills 80% of the time, we can just kind of let him do his thing. If he gets a pick, then we mid-round and do something based on what he calls. Right. So that's kind of I enjoy in-game leading with him being an opera on T sides because it makes my job a lot easier, especially now, comparing adreN with Kusa, on CT sides. adreN definitely has more of a presence and a voice in our strats. So he's somebody I can bounce stuff off of and somebody I can rely on to actually, help me make calls mid-round and the other side of the map where I'm not. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. I think we weren't the greatest on CT side so far, but again, we went back home last night and we tried to iron some stuff out.
Nice. Oh, you have dabbled with the idea of in-game leading in the past. And we were talking to you after a cevo-m where you subbed in for Elevate, and you called for them at the tournament, and you didn't win, but you placed really well. I think it was like semis.
No, I think we actually placed second.
Was it finals?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you guys did really, really well, and you're calling for a brand new team, and then you thought maybe that this might be a rewarding thing to try. And after changing out adreN, you probably had some discussion as to who was going to call on the team. What ended up for you and your team deciding on Nitro, and were you ever saying, let me do it, or should I give it a shot? Or are you saying that yourself?
I initially did not want to, so that's why we had Nitro do it. I kind of knew that without adreN, my team's communication isn't the greatest, so I didn't really feel comfortable. I didn't feel like I would have enough information on the other side of the map to actually be useful as an in-game leader because I'm the lurker. Since I'm the lurker, I'm not with the pack, so I need them to tell me what they see, what they hear, so that I can make a call. And I didn't feel confident enough to do that without adreN. And now here, as I said, adreN's usually with the pack. adreN's usually, on the other side of the map is me, and I can rely on him to actually make, good calls for me to decide where to go. So, initially we did try Nitro. Nitro didn't like it, and then it just kind of fell in my lap. And whether we have adreN or not, it's going to be me.
Oh, it is going to be you.
Yeah.
So have you been calling?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, you have?
Yeah,
okay.
So this entire event, even when we're playing with Kusa online, I'm the in-game leader, yeah.
So what is it? Okay, so you don't like calling because of kind of the role on your team specifically. Is there anything about calling in general you don't like, or the thought of it?
I kind of see it as a new challenge. I'm still undecided whether I like it or not. Obviously, winning a match, I think it's a lot. You feel more rewarded when you're the in-game leader, but at the same time, sure, it affects my individual performance a little bit. So, if we end up losing and I play bad and I'm in-game leading, not only did I play individually bad, but it's people also blame the in-game leader no matter what if you lose. So, it's a double-edged sword. Maybe we won't ever lose again. Maybe with me in-game leading, we'll just never lose.
Yeah.
So
haven't dropped the map yet.
That's right. So we'll have to see. But yeah, it's rewarding at times, and I'm sure it could be very degrading at times.
Cool. Let's throw it back for a second. The first time I did the interview with you was at ESWC. That was also where you were subbing in for Flipside. How did that happen? I think I asked you, but maybe if you give us a refresher. And this is also where Hiko met s1mple. And you guys seemed like you were great friends at the event. Yeah. How did that go down? Were you like...
So their fifth ended up having visa problems.
Yep.
And they only found out a couple days before the event. And so I'm pretty good friends with a couple of the managers on the flip side. And they called me and asked if I could show up, and I said, sure. And they told me, s1mple asked for you by name. He didn't want to play with any other American but you. So I think he had a respect for me before I even played with him, before I even knew him. And I think that's kind of why him and I get along so well, is because he he's a person who doesn't really respect, almost anybody.
Yeah.
So to have that respect before even meeting him, I think him and I had like a good bond. And so showed up there, played really well. I think he liked the way we played and the way I played specifically. And yeah, we kept in touch ever since then to the point where we needed a fifth. And I said, hey, any chance if you wanted to move to NA? And he said, yeah. So
nice. And so, that has been a problem for s1mple in the past, like the attitude thing and, just getting along and respecting people who are maybe worse than him, which is most people, obviously. So what's the environment like between him and the rest of the team? I think I heard it was a little bit worse at first. Has it gotten any better?
So when he first joined, him and adreN didn't get along at all. And it got to a point where we had to replace adreN because of it. So, then we brought Kusta in and then there was more problems and, he just has a very strong attitude. He always wants to win. If he plays well and we lose and somebody does bad, like he blames that person and he'll do it even when we're like live in a match. So it's something that we have to work on. It's something that Liquid has been helping us with. Something that I'm trying to help him with. And when we started playing with adreN again before the major, we had more problems again. Obviously, it's to be expected. Him and adreN definitely don't. They're not best friends. I don't think there's any point of sugarcoating it. They're definitely. I don't want to say they're enemies, but they don't get along perfectly.
Yeah.
So even a week before, one of the nights that we were practicing, we ended up having to be like, all right, s1mple, you're being too aggressive to adreN. We're just going to sit you and we're going to bring Kusta in. So for a night of scrims, we play with Kusta instead of s1mple. So it's something where you always have to keep his personality and his attitude in check. And I think every time we get to an actual tournament, every time we see him in person, it gets a lot better. So maybe that's just the tricks. Have a couple people live with him over in the house in LA, and maybe it'll get better.
Interesting. So far you guys haven't dropped the map. So I think the closest you got was the 12-3 half versus CLG, where they started off when you 2-0'd them, they started off by winning 12-3 on cash, and you guys both had kind of a crummy CT side to show for it. Did it start to get ugly in the comms when you guys were losing there?
Honestly, we all kept a pretty level head. Like I think I talked to most of my teammates and they all said that even though we got 12-3'd, we all felt like we were still going to win.
Nice.
So that's like probably the key thing to being on a team and to be on a team with young people. If they can keep their composure and they don't get tilted by going down 12-3, well, that's huge. And obviously we were able to come back from it and we were able to win the next map after that as well.
So confidence a key factor in the win over CLG?
Yeah, I mean, my teammates are all 18, 19, 20. So, they haven't really had that much experience coming to these big events. They haven't had that much experience playing on a big stage in front of tens of thousands of people. So, obviously there are rounds at the beginning of the match on CT side of our cache where people were missing and they were getting kind of in their own head that, oh, there's people here watching me do that and, oh, they think I suck now because I missed. But yeah, just James and I, and even adreN to an extent, we were really trying to just say, okay, listen, it doesn't matter, we're still in it, and we grinded through the next T side pretty well.
Nice. Yeah, and apart from that handed victory, you had to play Fnatic, and that was to win top seed. Kind of, I think a lot of teams were worried about how messed up the bracket was going to be after you won that match.
Yep.
It was a pretty big upset. Did it feel like a huge upset? It's this best of one. You have maybe a better chance as an underdog, but you were playing Dust 2, which actually, even the map choice favors Fnatic to some extent. So, did you have you said you had an expectation to win. You were confident, but did you feel surprised when you won? Was it a grind?
It was obviously it was a grind. Went to double overtime, and I think we could have closed out earlier, but we didn't. And I think that was one of the times when our CT side was actually really good. Like we actually caught on to what they were doing. We rotated well to counter what they were doing, like their mid Bs every round. So I think it's one of probably my biggest flaws as an in-game leader right now is our CT sides. I'm not very good at calling CT sides. So I try to have adreN help me on CT. I try to have James help me, but it doesn't really work that well because I'm still kind of new at it. But thankfully, for the most part of this tournament, we've been kind of carried by our T side. So hopefully we can keep doing that, and hopefully, what we talked about last night does help us to improve our CT sides moving forward.
With so many maps being CT sided, Does it feel perplexing, the reasons as to why it's so hard to like get your team to win CT rounds? Or do you feel like it's just like a gap in thinking for yourself as an IGL as to like what's missing, or you're like missing a point about fundamentally what to do on CT side? Or
I think we're starting to see a meta change now where T sides are actually like starting to become, almost every map is starting to become T side in my opinion. So, you know, it's as hard as it was to win CT rounds on T-sided maps, now it's even harder, and even on the maps that are considered CT-sided, like teams are still able to win 10 to 12 rounds on their T-sides. So, you know, I think it's kind of both, where I personally am not experienced in game weeding on CT side, so I don't really maybe understand the way to call some situations. But I also think that, as I said, the meta is changing and T-sides are starting to become more like stronger on every map.
does that call for more aggression on the CT side?
So that's what we were trying to do online with Kusta, but we weren't really able to get those kind of early picks. And he's as I said, he's a very passive player. So, you know, a lot of times on our CT side with adreN and s1mple, when they double up, is, you know, we try to have them pick and we try to have them get us information and see where the other team is going. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Obviously, you know, I think one of the biggest problems with my team, even before s1mple joined, is our CT side post plants, our CT side man up situations where we would be in like a 4v2 or 3v1 or whatever, and somebody would just peek and die, and then, you know, we could lose a round because of that. So it's something that I am trying to really drill in the little kids' minds that, hey, we're up, don't peek, you don't have to make a play. You know, it doesn't matter if you get the last kill or not. It doesn't matter if you get the ace or not. Play smart. Just win the round. That's all that matters.
Is there when you try to drill those fundamentals in, like NA teams get yelled at constantly by like analysts, some people who don't know what they're talking about, some people who think they know what they're talking about like, you know, playing an after plan properly. There is definitely a point where you can be too scared in those situations, and
Sure.
you know, we see like teams like Fnatic play on confidence and make kind of overly aggressive plays that work because they know that they're gonna win. How do you find that balance when you're in a situation where, you know, a teammate would need help, but you're just so focused on getting like perfect after plan spots and holding, you know?
There's definitely a give and take. You know, you don't want to play too passive. You don't want to give them all the map control and then you just get flanked and sandwiched in somewhere. But if we're in like a 4v2 and somebody's like, okay, I want to just peek him and try to get the kill, well, that's not a good peek. So I'm talking more about like obvious situations where we just play passive, hold the crossfire, hold an angle, and we kill them together instead of just peeking solo.
Right. So
I think,
flash
I
peek
mean,
or a double peek or something.
yeah, and I think that just comes with experience. I think, you know, most Americans are very used to playing in like 10-mans and pugs and ESEA and all that stuff, FPL. So it's bad habits that they've just been doing for years, maybe their entire career. So just have to drill it out of them, make sure they understand that they made a bad play, and make sure they don't do it again in the future.
Do you feel like you're far off from a European standard of play, or do you feel like it's like a talent thing with European teams, or like?
I don't think so. I think, okay, Europeans individually make better decisions.
Yeah.
So I don't think Europeans have better aim than Americans. I think as far as aim goes, everyone's pretty much the same. There's some people that have, you know, really good aim. So it's more of making decisions individually and how to move as a team, you know, playing with teamwork. So, you know, I think that, again, that comes a lot from playing 10-man stuff. You know, Americans really are heavy on playing 10-mans and really are heavy on just like pugging around, playing like that scrimmy play style where they just kind of make a play for themselves. Or Europeans, if a European player is going to do that, he has a teammate with him that's going to be ready to trade, or he has a teammate with him on the other side of the map that's getting ready to go on the other side of the map. So I think it's important that for the Americans that do, you know, end up making those scrimmy plays, if they want to keep doing it, that's fine, they can. They just have to have like a teammate or have some kind of goal, you know, whether it succeeds or fails on what to do after that.
Gotcha. Now you're playing the winner of LG and VP. Who would you rather go up against?
It's a tough question. Both teams are really, really good. Luminosity, I think, is the better team between the two, but we know how Luminosity plays.
Right.
You know, we play them a lot online. We beat them in scrims. They beat us in scrims. So as far as knowing how they play, I think Luminosity would be the easier team tactically, as far as individual skill, I think Virtus Pro would be the easier team just to outshoot. So I personally think I would rather have Virtus Pro win because we've taken them a lot of times close. We beat them at IEM when they were using a stand-in. Even the last major, we were up like 15-10 on Cobble, or 15-7 or something. So I think I personally would rather have Virtus Pro win.
Nice. Is there something about that when you're up 15-7 and you can't get that last round? You know, obviously it turns into half the rounds you have money to buy, and so it seems like a huge comeback, but it's only 3 or 4 rifles to actually think about. But the more you lose in a row, the more scared you get. Is there like I guess one question that pertains to the stadium right now is the audience was like going crazy for you guys, and like in the CLG match, you know, you had the comeback after going down 12-3. They were cheering the whole time, you know, but it just got louder and louder. Do you think that helps? Do you think there are players that don't like that, or?
I'm sure there are some players that don't like it. I think everyone on my team really likes it. You know, being able to, after every time you win a round, after every time you get a big kill, like you hear your name being chanted, you hear USA being chanted, you hear the crowd going wild. So I think that helps with a lot of the nerve factor. You know, as long as people aren't missing their shots and they're getting kind of self-conscious about it, I think the nerves just, it kind of heightens their play. It heightens, they want to do good. They want to do better. They want to, you know, we saw something yesterday where s1mple wanted to show off in front of the crowd, and he was. You know,
he knifed the ceiling after he got like a 2K just because he heard his name being cheered.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean that specifically could be counterproductive though. You know, if s1mple or if anybody is trying to show off and they're making a big flashy play and they die, well, you just threw away your life. So you know, it goes both ways, but I think for the most part it helps my players specifically.
Now, on top of all that, I think in Ohio there's like an issue with the fire code that prevents you guys from having soundproof booths. I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
Yeah.
Is that it? So that's got to be a big issue for considering how many people are in the audience, and you guys are just kind of out in the open. Like you have nice spots to be in, but it's got to be loud, right?
It's loud, and I've played in soundproof booths before. And honestly, if there's 10, 12,000 people yelling, a soundproof booth isn't going to do anything. It's not going to stop the 12,000 people. You're still going to hear it. You're still going to see them out in the crowd going wild. So sure, it helps for the casters a little bit, but the way they have the speakers set up, I couldn't hear the casters at all through my headset. So I like it like this. I'm not complaining because there's not soundproof booths. You know, even at the last major, I think we did play on stage in Cluj, or maybe it was the qualifier. But yeah, there were soundproof booths and they were really hot and it didn't smell very good. And you know, even though they were soundproof booths, you could still hear the crowd. So I don't really see a big problem with it. I think I see a lot of people hating on MLG for not having the booths, but I have no problems with it.
Interesting perspective. I guess this is a bonus question. It's been really hard to get interviews as press. You know, sometimes at other events, you guys are used to the staff or production telling you that you have to like go to a press area for a bit for interviews. Do you think that like as teams mature and the stages get bigger and it's much harder to kind of get contact with everybody all the time, that you have an expectation or kind of a responsibility to your org or to your fans to like show up for interviews or accept them when they come to you, or do you only, or do you feel like it's fine if no one tells you to do them that you should do them?
I mean, sure, someone like me, I mean, I do most of the interviews anyway for my team, so I don't have a problem doing it, but I know, you know, people get tired of hearing the same person over and over again. People would much rather hear from somebody like Nitro or Liege over someone like me who's doing every interview. So I think even when, you know, an org or the tournament tries to force us to the media area, you know, I think that's good for you guys, but, you know, does it really help with the comfort of the players? Not really. And, you know, sure, every player has a responsibility to their org, their fans, their family, whatever, to actually do interviews, get their face out there, do, you know, the social media stuff. And it's unfortunate that everybody doesn't see it the same way. But yeah, I actually have heard that a lot of other press people have been complaining that they haven't actually been able to get to the players. So, you know, I know when I walk out on the stage, there's like 5 people waiting for me. Like as I'm walking, they try to ask me questions. I've never seen that before. You know, it's always been like, you are in the press area. If you want an interview, you go there. Now it's like they would just ask you questions just kind of nonchalantly. And you don't even know if they're recording. Like you see them on their phone, and then the next thing I look over, oh, they're actually recording this. So
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
Dog eat dog right now. Now, do you guys have did you have an expectation before you even started playing as to how well you thought you could do in the major? I think a lot of people have been really reasonable. Oh, we just want to make it a groups. Oh, maybe semis.
I think groups was definitely we saw as reachable. I think FaZe we expected to be in the best of 3 against. I don't think we expected to beat them and then play Fnatic and beat them as well.
Right.
I think if you would have asked probably the majority of people in the entire community, they would have said, you know, I think even the majority said that FaZe would make it out of groups. They didn't expect us to make it even out of groups. So it's really good for us that we were able to beat FaZe and Fnatic and make it the first seed, because then we got to play CLG in the semis or the quarters, and now we're in the semis.
Right.
So as far as expectations go, as I said, we were aiming to make it out of groups, and then if we got a lucky bracket, maybe we could make it to semis, the finals even.
Yeah. So
I think we have definitely exceeded our expectations, and it's definitely possible for us to make the final and maybe even win the whole thing. Yeah. So it's so amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. You happy? Would you be happy to see Navi in the final alongside you?
If it comes down to Navi or Astralis, both teams are really good. I think as far as s1mple goes, he respects Navi a lot more than he respects Astralis. So as far as for his sake, I would rather play Astralis in the finals because they're like his CIS brothers. He hangs out with them all the time, speaks their language. And I can tell from talking to him that he respects Guardian probably the most out of any other person probably in the world. So at least as a player. So I think for his sake, I'd rather play Astralis.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the interview, man.
No problem.
Really appreciate it.
No problem.
Always a pleasure. And good luck in your match now.
You owe me a Voss water.
Yeah, I'll trade you for a hat.
Deal.
Okay, I like this.